Everybody, it's Brent Axe, and we are live here on the Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page, and we are coming off the heels of a Syracuse loss to the North Carolina Tar Heels, a star-studded crowd at the Carrier Dome, and the last time that a Syracuse men's basketball game will be played under the Teflon bubble roof. On Sunday, Syracuse women's basketball will play Boston College, and then you don't have to go home, but you can't stay there. The Carrier Dome will close for several months. Full tilt, 7-day-a-week. Construction will begin. And then in the fall, when Syracuse opens up the college football season against Colgate, a brand new roof and a brand new scoreboard will greet visitors and fans to the Carrier Dome. So North Carolina ruined the party today. John Wallace got his 44 retired. Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, Jimmy Fallon, amongst those in the crowd as the Tar Heels take down the Orange, 92-79. Great to have you here on this Saturday evening. Thanks to our friends at Krause Health. Now, if you're joining us live, we do appreciate that, but just a reminder that we do put these chats in a couple different places for you to catch them on demand. One is on YouTube, and you can find it on the Syracuse Orange Sports YouTube page. We put it in my recap, or just search YouTube to find it. We also put this in podcast form. So if you are a podcast fan, you should subscribe to the syracuse.com podcast. You get my Syracuse sports podcast. You get the Syracuse football podcast, and you get this chat in podcast form sent to you so you can listen on demand. Yeah, 92-79, the final score at the Dome, and it was a game which knocked Syracuse down to 16-13 overall. They're 9-9 in ACC play. That's the 9th straight victory for North Carolina over Syracuse, and this one came down to three-point shooting. Syracuse's inability to stop North Carolina from shooting the three, Syracuse's inability to defend the three-point shot, and the inability themselves to hit the three against North Carolina. Biggest stat in this one was 11 of 26. That was the Tar Heels from three-point range. That's 42%. Cole Anthony was the Cole Anthony we expected to see throughout the season, the player that's going to go in the top 5 of the upcoming NBA draft, and the player that fit that description as one of the best in the country. He was white hot today, 7 of 11 from three-point range. 7 of his 8 field goals in this game were those three-pointers. He finishes with 25 points on the day. It was Garrison Brooks who led the way for North Carolina, yet another guy that took advantage of Syracuse's weak interior defense. 26 points, 13 rebounds for him, 10 of those 13 on the defensive end for the Tar Heels. Christian Keeling, 2 of 4 from three-point range, 18 points overall, 7 of 11 in this game, 18 points for the Tar Heels before he left towards the end of the game with an injury. That's the story from the North Carolina side of things. For the Orange, Buddy Boeheim looked okay on that supposedly bum ankle that he had. Terrific game for him individually with 22 points, just 2 of 7 from three-point range, but 9 of 17 overall. Elijah Hughes did end up with 19 points on the day, but really struggled to shoot the ball. 5 of 16 for him. He was 7 of 7 at the free throw line, just 2 of 7 from three-point range for Elijah. Baramba Sidibe continued his stellar play as of late. 17 points, 15 rebounds for him. A double-double, second straight double-double for him, and the third straight game where he has made an impact inside. And while he ended up with 4 fouls on the day, did not foul out. Marek Dolzaj did foul out of this game with 6 points and 3 rebounds, picked up 3 quick fouls, a 4th foul early in the second half, and just could not be the effective inside player that Syracuse needs him to be. Joe Girard, not much today, 3 of 12 for him shooting. He ends up with 9 points on the day. Quincy Guerrier with just 6 points and 3 rebounds. He's quieted down after a bit of a tear for him. And Syracuse just couldn't keep pace. We mentioned North Carolina shot 42% from three-point range. They were 52% overall, 33 of 63. Syracuse shot a very fitting 44% on the day that John Wallace's 44 hit the rafters at the Carrier Dome temporarily, because they got to take all that stuff down soon to repair the roof, right? But Syracuse shoots 28 of 63, 6 of 24 from three-point range. That's just not going to get it done, particularly against a good North Carolina team. And people will look at this and they'll say, hey, look, North Carolina's bad this year. North Carolina's a last-place team. This is a game that Syracuse should have won. Not going to disagree with you there at all, but North Carolina always had the athletes. This is as healthy as they have been, although Keeling left the game, and they did have a couple of injuries in this one, but this is as healthy as they've been, and this is as good as Cole Anthony has been, and Syracuse has just not played good defense at the three-point line all year long. Their defense have been a little better in recent games, but those were games against teams that didn't have the offensive talent that North Carolina does. And this was going to be a game that Syracuse was going to be competitive in. They had to make some defensive stops. They didn't make any. This reminded me of the Duke game at the Dome, a few weeks back. It actually started this month. February 1st was Duke. This was the bookend game in February. A leap day. Happy leap day, by the way. Adrian Autry's birthday, by the way. He turned 12 years old today, if you count by leap years. So happy birthday to Coach Autry. But it reminded me of that Duke game, which Duke won 97-88, but Syracuse didn't make any stops. Same thing here. They couldn't make any stops at the three-point line. We mentioned the great day that Brooks had inside. And if that's going to be the case, that's fine. But you got to keep pace offensively. And Buddy Boeheim was really the only one doing it. We mentioned the great game from Sidibe. Hughes didn't have a good game. I know he ended up with 17 points, but this was not the Elijah Hughes that Syracuse needed today. So your best defense is just keeping pace on offense there. And I thought Syracuse would want to play that kind of game. That's what I like about when Syracuse plays Carolina. They don't like playing Carolina lately. As mentioned, they've lost 9 in a row to the Tar Heels, but it's a basketball game. So I like when they play Duke and when they play North Carolina, not only for the star-studded affairs that they are and the celebrity sitting courtside. Jimmy Fallon had a lot of fun. He was doing the encore promotion. He was leading the band, greeting fans, doing the whole thing, sitting courtside with Syracuse's Spike Lee, Adam Weissman, who brought Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, and Jimmy Fallon to this game. So it was a star-studded affair. It was the last time that Syracuse would play under the bubble, but in terms of the basketball, the Orange didn't play the game that they needed to, obviously, on either end here. If you're not going to make any defensive stops, you got to have it going offensively, and Syracuse just didn't for the most part today. We didn't mention the rebounding numbers. That's really something that you had to expect North Carolina to win. 38-29 were the final rebounding numbers. The Tar Heels had 12 offensive boards in this game. I anticipated Syracuse to lose the rebounding battle in this game, and that they did. So when Syracuse does win the rebound battle, they win games. They're 13-2 this season when they win the rebounding battle, but obviously haven't done that enough throughout the season. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying here in the comments. Omar saying you can officially say that the NCAA talk is dead. Yep, short of winning the ACC tournament. You're absolutely right about that. It's all a matter of what seed they get in the NIT. Scott saying it right there. So like a 4 seed in the NIT it's looking like. And even in that case, Syracuse doesn't get a home game because of the Carrier Dome renovations. I know they've looked at some local sites, but the easiest thing to do would just be get your bid, get your team, and book a flight and go somewhere, right? Like the women's lacrosse team had to do today. Good for the women's lacrosse team. Maryland, weak sauce, absolute weak sauce. Backing out of that game, citing weather forecasts, which was complete bunk. The weather was fine here in central New York. They're getting nailed north of us in the big lake effect areas. Measuring in feet of snow there. But here in central New York, it was cold, it was windy, but it was fine. Maryland refused to travel here due to weather concerns, and the women's lacrosse team went down there today and beat them 10-5. So good for them. Just wanted to give a shout out to the ladies after that bogus almost cancellation by Maryland down in College Park today. So Brian notes April 2023 would be the 20th anniversary of Syracuse's national championship. Hope they get a 7-footer. Dior sticks with his commitment and get another 5-star. Interesting you bring that up, Brian. Chance Westry, another 5-star recruit, visited today with Dior Johnson, both class of 2022. And nothing official yet, but it's looking pretty good that Syracuse, I think, is going to get Chance Westry as well. So bad news is a loss. Bad news is an NIT season. The good news is Syracuse is going to have 2 5-star commits here, probably by the end of the weekend, I would say. It's looking pretty good. It's not official yet, but I'm pretty sure Chance is going to commit. From what I've heard at this point, they have DR's commitment, and they'll kind of go from there. That's the one thing that can ease the sting of an NIT season, of a season hovering around the 500 line, and the disappointing season that this has been. With just 2 games to go, Syracuse will play Boston College Tuesday night. They will play Miami after that, and we'll see what happens in the ACC tournament. But short of Syracuse winning that, They are not going to the NCAA tournament this year. Omar noting that UNC was playing 4 guards, Brooks in the middle, still out-rebounded Syracuse. True, but they're a good rebounding team one way or the other. Rebounding's not just size. Syracuse certainly proves that. Syracuse is taller than a lot of teams out there. Barama got his job on the boards today. Marek wasn't in there to rebound as much as he needed to be in foul trouble, but your guards got to get rebounds too. When you're taking all those three-pointers and the opponent is taking all those threes, now Carolina made a bunch today, but your guards got to rebound too. Michael Antonio saying, Brent, you should be not rooting for Syracuse to be in the NIT. It hurts all business in the area. I mean, I'm not rooting for it. It's just reality, Michael Antonio. They're just not going to the tournament unless they win the ACC tournament. That's just the reality of the situation. You're not wrong to say that. There's nothing like a deep tournament run in the area for Central New York. The bars and local establishments love it. The community gets fired up about it. No question. Not rooting for it. I don't want to see Syracuse play in the NIT. The NIT is boring. The NIT is the booby prize, right? But that's the reality of it. There's a difference between reality and between observations and rooting at this point. I would never root for Syracuse to go to the NIT. That's boring. Matt saying, Brent, can't see next season being any different. Be interesting if they do get those recruits. Do you expect the 2022 season to be Boeheim's last? Just an opinion, Matt, I don't. If they get those 5-star recruits, Jim Boeheim likes to coach basketball, and I don't think he's going to walk away. And I don't know who that would be a gift to if Jim decided to retire. I think if 2022 comes, now remember, Buddy Boeheim's done by then, and Jim does decide to retire, it is my fervent hope that John Wildhack, if he's still on the watch, a lot can happen in 2 years, right, does not just hand the job to Autry or Jerry McNamara. You're Syracuse. You're an ACC program. You're a top-level program that can get a big-name coach. So you don't just hand it off to the assistant. I could see Boeheim pulling a retire right before the season starts, so you have to give it to the assistant coach to give him a run. Remember, Dean Smith did that with who was the assistant coach at Carolina at the time? Bill Guthrie, I believe, was the assistant coach. I might be wrong on that. Bill Guthridge, I believe, was the name. But we're speculating down the road here. But I don't. I think Boeheim's going to coach as long as he can. Right? I mean, you keep having seasons like this, it's going to make it an easier question to answer. But a lot of people timed it with when Buddy leaves. But if you've got 5-star commitments in 2022 after Buddy's gone, why would you stop coaching? Just looking at it from his perspective, you can agree or disagree with that. But I do expect him to be there if you're asking me to make a prediction on it. I hate to say it, but Clemson did what Syracuse should have done. Win big games like today. They did, Mike. Clemson got a big win over Florida State. I saw Baylor lost to TCU today. Few upsets in the top 25. That wild college basketball season continues. Jeff says it's the most infuriating season ever at this point. I wonder if you guys agree with that. Matt saying they're going to wheel him out of the dome. I think it's Matt. I think it's going to be more like Weekend at Bernie's, right? They're just going to go over to the bench one day and be like, Jim, hello, Jim. And maybe they'll still put him on the bench to coach. I don't know. I mean, he's just never going to leave. This is the way it's going to be. Let's see. Rob says on North Carolina could have been this year with a healthy Cole Anthony all season. Syracuse got a taste of it today. Williams knows how to coach against the zone, and we knew they were going to score. Brahma was great. Boeheim and Hughes were good but needed to be better. Dolezaj and Girard underachieved to win this game. They needed all 5 of those guys to play a solid offensive game, and they didn't. With Clemson beating Florida State today, anything less than an ACC tournament championship lands Syracuse in the NIT. Very good comment, Rob, as always. You're dead right about all those things. You needed Joe to hit threes. You needed somebody other than those two offensively, the Buddy and Barama show that it was. Again, Hughes ended up with 17 points, but not an impact. Wasn't hitting threes. And if you trend back to the end of January, as much NBA buzz as Hughes is getting, you look at his skill set, you look at what scouts are saying about him, you look at leading scorer in the ACC, all combined. I think he's done. I think we just watched his last game in the Carrier Dome, and he will get picked if he goes to the NBA draft, probably early second round, but you never know what a good workout season, and you go to the NBA Combine in Chicago, which I fully expect him to be invited to, and all it takes is one team to fall in love with you, right? But as the one knock, the scouts that I've talked to and the general consensus on Elijah is just that. He's an inconsistent shooter, but I think in NBA hands with professional coaches, once you can really focus on it, I think you're going to see that come around. Let's see. Matt asking any word on Tepe. That's Patrick Tepe who was the Columbia transfer. Nothing official, Matt. I know he was going to take some other visits. I know Maryland was on his radar, a couple other schools that he wanted to visit. I've heard he's going to announce sometime next week or perhaps after that. I know within the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye on everything. We'll certainly keep an eye on it for you and let you know what's going on there, but nothing more than what we know right now. He is strongly considering Syracuse. It'd be a one-year transfer next year and would be that's the position Syracuse needs. We've talked about it on the chat here. You saw it again today with the way that Carolina was scoring in the paint and how all year long Syracuse has just been torn apart inside. Again, Barama was great today, but defensively it's still just a black hole in there for Syracuse. It's just they can't stop anybody in the paint. And today couldn't get out on the shooters either. It was an inside-out combo defensively, but that's what Syracuse needs. They need an impact big man. What they need is Isaiah Stewart, right? And look, Washington's been terrible this year. For all the people that say Mike Hopkins this, Mike Hopkins that, they're a losing team right now. They're the worst team in the Pac-12. That's a bad league. So, even the mighty Mike Hopkins is having a bad year with a couple of players that, Syracuse had their eye on. Stewart being one, who's going to be a top 10 pick. He's a great player, nothing against him. But Quade Green goes out with Hopkins and gets academically ineligible, can't even play. So, that's how the cookie crumbles there, right? Jeff saying, are they a top-level program in the ACC? I can think of several programs that are better jobs than Syracuse. They're a top-level program in the sense that they're in the ACC, the prestige of being Syracuse basketball, the history of it, the Carrier Dome. They have one of the top practice facilities in the country. The Mello Center is up there with any school. You name me any school, and Syracuse is in the top 5 of that. The right coach in the right situation could really, keep Syracuse where they're at now, if not build on it at this point. But it's fair to note that since Syracuse has come in the ACC, I don't think they finished higher than 6th in the league. Somebody can correct me on that. The tournament runs that they made, they still had to kind of squeak into the tournament, right? The 2016 Final Four team, a lot of people felt like that Syracuse team shouldn't have even been in the tournament. Everybody was screaming about that. Remember the Mike Greenbergs and the Doug Gottliebs and Dick Vitale and all the experts saying they shouldn't have been there, and they make a Final Four run. Michigan State losing that year to, Middle Tennessee State, really helped them there. But Syracuse has all the tools to be a top-level program. There's no question about it. Right now, they kind of ride the reputation of Boeheim and the Hall of Famer and history, as we mentioned, and tradition and all those things. But if you just hit the reset button and say, I'm going to give you the facilities that you have, I'm going to give you the ACC, the television money that comes with that, the television exposure that you get on ESPN, all things considered, you got all the tools to be a big-time coach here. So I thought we would have had that question answered by now, and Jim Boeheim, he just loves coaching too much, right? So Syracuse has 2 games left. They're both on the road. They're all on the road or a neutral court from here on out, right? They got Boston College Tuesday night. They got Miami coming up after that. Next Saturday, 2 below 500 teams, 2 teams that Syracuse absolutely should beat. I think a lot of people felt that way about North Carolina today too. The difference is North Carolina's got the athletes and the talent. They've just had a weird season. Anthony was gone for a lot of the year. They've been snake-bitten. Even when they had a 12-point lead late, you had to keep watching the game because Carolina has just blown leads all year long. Not just against Duke. That Duke game was unbelievable, the way that Duke came back in that one. But they've lost leads to Virginia Tech. They've lost leads to a bunch of teams. And by the way, North Carolina's going to be fine, right? They got 4 McDonald's All-Americans coming in next year. This is temporary blip on the radar screen for Roy Williams. Somebody brought it up earlier, too. Roy knows how to coach against the zone better than anybody in this league. He tears it apart, and he's got the personnel to do it, but you have to have the coaching to do it. Frankly, Roy Williams has coached circles around Boeheim in their matchups in the ACC. We mentioned it earlier. That's 9 straight wins for the Tar Heels over the Orange. Scott saying, do you think that the recruits see how bad the need is and get them hungry, or they would rather sit on a Duke or Kentucky bench and play in 2 to 3 years? That's it. I think recruits do see the opportunity to play and get out there, and you don't have to wait in line. I think Dior Johnson, the commit that they got in 2022, is one of those elite players that could play at a Kentucky or a Duke or a Carolina or a top-flight program right off the bat. But at Syracuse, Dior said it himself. It's kind of a backhanded compliment in a way, but he said he kind of sees himself, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's basically he sees himself as, I believe he tweeted, Syracuse basketball is back, right, or said something like that when he committed, and he's recruiting other players. Chance Westery, who we mentioned, that was visiting today, making his official visit at Syracuse. So if Dior sees Syracuse as what I was just saying, like that's his platform, not only for himself, but to put Syracuse back where they need to be. And he's a one-and-done player by all accounts. And if the NBA's one-and-done rule changes by 2022, which it very well may, this could be the second high-profile recruit that commits to Syracuse and never plays, a minute for him, with Darius Baisley being the other one. What a unique situation that was, right? Omar notes that the Tyler Ennis season, they finished second in the ACC. Okay, thank you for correcting me on that. Mike saying that our coach has always been taking subpar players, and look what he's done with what he's always beaten better teams with big-time players. So get behind the coach. We won't really get any better. Jim does have a reputation of taking kind of off-the-radar guys, and by the time they're done, making them All-Americans, making them great players. That's true, but you do want to play around with some 4- and 5-star players too. You want to get the highly rated recruits to commit as well. Brian makes a good point here in the comments saying 2 5-star guards should attract big men on the front line. Players recruit players, right? Nothing recruits players like other players. You need that 1 5-star to kind of knock the dominoes down. Coaches obviously are heavily involved in the process, but players recruit players more than anything. So the depth that Syracuse will have at guard, they've got Kadari Richmond coming in next year. Gerard's going to be around for a couple of years. Of course, Bryson Goodheim's going to be around for a couple of years. These 2 guards that we're talking about, Westery and Robinson. Westery hasn't committed officially yet, but that is looking good that he's going to. You need depth at that position, and boy, Syracuse has shown that with the players that have gotten hurt, the really unique situation with Howard Washington Jr. and the stroke that he suffered last year. I mean, you need 4 or 5 good guards on this team, right? Or any team for that matter, but to kind of maintain. But Syracuse is in desperate need. And Boeheim admitted it himself in a radio interview that he has not recruited big men well enough. Barama's been great the past 3 games, but hasn't been there for the other 25 this season. So that's got to be a priority for Syracuse in recruiting impact big man that you can have stick around for a couple of years, right? It'd be great to have an Isaiah Stewart, a player of that caliber. Patrick Tape would only be a 1-year player anyway as a transfer, but you'll take what you can get. But you'd like to get a big man that you can keep around for 2 or 3 years. Quincy Guerrier looks to be on the way to be that player, but you need a couple of them, not just him, and he's at a different position anyway. So I'll tell you what, guys, I think we'll wrap it up there for tonight. Don't forget to check out the recap on syracuse.com tomorrow. All of our great coverage, not only of the game, but, boy, Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, Jimmy Fallon, star-studded crowd at the Carrier Dome today. On a lesser note, shout out to my guys Adam Shine and John Jastrzemski of Radio Royalty in New York, who are also at the game. Give my boys a shout out there. And it was the last time that the Teflon bubble roof served as a host, if you will, for a Syracuse basketball game. The new look Carrier Dome opens in the fall. It'll be really interesting to see the new scoreboard and what kind of game experience that provides as well. 40 years of that Teflon bubble look is over. And anybody that's ever driven into Syracuse, you come up Route 81 and you see the dome over the horizon there. It always kind of, either you're home if you're from Central New York, or I'm officially in Syracuse, we've arrived. If you're going to a game or for whatever reason you were coming to the Cuse, it's going to look a lot different now. It's got that futuristic kind of roller coaster truss system on the top of it to support the scoreboard. So it's going to look a little different, but Syracuse is keeping up with the times. No longer will you be whooshed out of the Carrier Dome either, with the air-supported system going by the wayside with the new roof. So thank you for your service, Teflon Roof. It's been an honor. Thank you for watching today. Again, we do put this on YouTube. We do put this in podcast form as well if you can't be here live. Next time we'll chat is Tuesday night after Syracuse takes on Boston College. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for hanging with us, as always, here on Facebook Live.